Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of FinServ Tech Oracles. I'm Johna Johnson, Oracle number one, here with my oracular colleague, Jerry Murphy, and we are ready to share our thoughts on technology for financial services firms. And Jerry, for this episode, you wanted to talk to how to talk to the board about topics like AI, cybersecurity, and other things that can have institutional impact. And so, combining two themes from the last couple of weeks, boards need to be up to speed on AI, cybersecurity, and other highly technical subjects. How does a CISO or a CIO or another form of technology executive structure the board conversation, and what should they say?
All right. First thing they got to do is be concise. That's hell of something coming from me because I'm one of the least concise people out there.
This is
But
true.
you look at this executive order, it's got a lot of pages in it, a lot of information, a lot of stuff to do. You got to cut through the chaff and say, what is the one thing essential that's important from a business that the board needs to know, and focus on that from a business perspective, grab their attention with something that's salient, and then you can go through details after that. But you got to bottom line up front.
Yeah, bottom line up front is your friend, and remember that they call it an an executive summary for a reason. What else?
Well, some people are looking at the whole concept of AI and should I even do it? Is it premature? The reality is, even if you don't think you're using AI, you probably are using AI. That is, most companies today are using software as a service companies, things like Notion, Salesforce, etc. Monday. All of these companies are using AI in their products. So you really need to think about the impacts of it, even if you aren't using it yourself internally. Probably something you're using is using it, and you need to think about it. And because of that, the SEC regulations around this are probably going to fall to you because you're still going to be responsible for any risks, any cybersecurity issues, or any vulnerabilities that your company is experiencing as a result of using a service that probably does have AI.
Well, and sort of more broadly, the SEC ruling that's gonna hit in just over a month and a day, on December 15th requires you to report any material breaches to the board, even if they come from third parties. So if you're using software as a service that is relying on, say, Amazon, and Amazon gets breached, then that entire chain of third party risk is something that you need to report back up to the board. So it sounds like what you're saying here, Jerry, is your first concise message to the board is don't think we're off the hook. We almost certainly aren't,
Right.
either from an AI or a cybersecurity perspective. Anything else?
Yes, I would also say you need to think very hard about what your data sources are for using AI. So, if you're using it yourself, I would certainly make sure that the data sources you're using to train your models, if you have them, are internal, not external. Because what we found is that very likely a lot of these public sources have been using copyrighted information or information that is known to be false. So certainly, if you're doing your own, you have to do that. Secondly, look at your service providers and question them on what are their data sources, because the data that you protect for your clients is going to be essential, and you need to understand where that data is coming from when you're building AI models, to make sure you understand both the risks and where your own protected information is going.
Yeah, and I would just highlight that you need to think about data differently because up until last year, you were pretty safe saying, well, this data is PII, this is, personal information. We need to flag it as sensitive. This data over here is not, so it's okay. But now with AI, we found that it's possible for AI to actually compute PII from non-PII, which means that this whole notion of saying this data is safe, this data is protected, and just protect the stuff that needs to be protected goes out the window. So the whole bigger picture here is you really need both AI governance and digital ethics in place so you can think through how to protect things and how to protect against cybersecurity breaches that AI might bring and protect against in general cybersecurity breaches that may come in from the third parties. And Jerry, it seems to me like the kind of bigger moral of the story here is if you have a third party risk executive, you need to be talking to that person like now. If your organization is big enough to have somebody who specializes in third party risk, that conversation has to be hot and heavy and has to cover both cybersecurity and AI. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And anybody in IT, when they're especially when they're dealing in these areas, you need to be in lockstep with your chief risk officer because they need to understand the business can't make a decision about risk until they really know what the risk is. And I think one of the challenges with AI is it's bringing in areas of risk that you don't even realize are there. Is the data actually true data? People used to not even have to think about that. Now with AI and these data models, you cannot even assume the data you have is true, much less is it private or protected. So these are issues that have to be brought to the board. They need to understand what the risks are so they can make intelligent risk-based business decisions.
So basically, it sounds like your top takeaways are number one, be concise. Number two, audit your SaaS services in use and try to really understand what their AI stance and their cybersecurity stance. Number three, be aware of what data is being used both by yourself and the services. And number four, really make sure you're couching your conversation with the board in terms of risk and inform yourself of the company's risk policy and third party risk policy by talking to those folks. Is that kind of the takeaway from this discussion today?
That sounds great. I would take that to the bank.
All right. Well, that's it until next week. Thanks for watching. You can register for the entire series online and check out a couple of other links and attachments that we've got online. And please tune in next week at 0900 before the markets open for the next episode of FinServ Tech Oracles, right before the market opens on Tuesdays.
Be
Take
safe
care.
out there.